Hello, welcome back. My name is Gigi. Welcome back to another BookTube video. Today, I want to talk to you about all of the books that I've read this past month of September and what my plans, more so like goals, are for the months of October and November. September was actually a pretty slow month for me in terms of reading. Obviously, not that there is any kind of threshold on how much you should be reading a month, but I usually am pretty good at getting in about, I want to say, anywhere between 7 to 12 books a month, and I did not get anywhere near that this month. I did recently start a job, and I am unfortunately very much still in school, but I did get through a couple of books that have been sitting on my TBR for a while now, so let's talk about them. First book I read this month was Belladonna by Adelyn Grace. And I've had this one on my horizon for quite some time now. I mean, I'm sure you have heard a lot about it. Belladonna is about 19-year-old Signa, who is an orphan and has had multiple caregivers throughout her life, all of which at some point end up mysteriously dead. Signa is able to see and communicate with the dead as long as Death himself, who in this case is personified. After her last caretaker passes away, is essentially taken in by her distant and wealthy uncle. Once she arrives at the manor where her distant family lives, she finds out that her aunt has passed away due to an unknown illness, and her cousin is essentially in a coma, not in a coma, but she's bedridden because of the same illness, and no one knows what's going on. I did enjoy this book quite a lot. It did start a little bit slow for me. Signa herself was a very enjoyable main character. She wasn't annoying by any means. I really like the dynamic between her and Death. Of course, this isn't a spoiler, but of course there is an underlying love story between them as well. Really enjoyed hearing about Death from Death's perspective. Signa obviously has a very, very negative view of death, and she basically thinks that death is the worst thing in the world, which, I mean, don't we all? But then you hear Death's perspective on what death is, and you know, we really get to see him talk about how it's the circle of life, and how knowing that you can't have people forever is what makes you appreciate them being there, and knowing your own mortality is what helps you appreciate the fact that you are alive, and life is something that you should make an effort to live up to its fullest potential. So long story short, I did really enjoy this book. It was not life-changing by any means for me. I did enjoy it enough to the point where I do want to read the second book. I finished this right at the beginning of September. I'm pretty sure the second book had not come out yet. It is out now. I have not read it, but I'm pretty sure I will be picking it up. So the second book I read, or should I say actually listened to on audiobook, was one that I have been waiting to listen to for the longest time now through my library. I want to say months ago, and I was not able to get a hold of this freaking book. It was always taken by someone else until now, and that is I'm Glad My Mom Died by Jannette McCurdy. If you are on the internet at all, I am absolutely certain that you have heard of this book. I mean, this, I want to say, was probably one of the most popular books last year. I'm Glad My Mom Died is Jannette McCurdy's memoir, and if you're not familiar with Jannette McCurdy, she played Sam in iCarly and Sam and Cat, and in her memoir, she walks us through what her life was before she came into child stardom, and what her life was after she found herself very much reluctantly being a child star. I do think that audiobook is the best way to consume this story, because it is a memoir and is written by Jannette herself, and is very much written in a way where you can hear her voice. There are a lot of run-on sentences. It's very much a just constant stream of thought, which really adds to the story, and the fact that, you know, she's really just trying to tell her perspective on how her life has been. But I will say that, again, the best way to consume this book would probably be through audio, because that way you get to hear how she meant to be telling the story. That's an aspect of the story that you will appreciate more if you can hear Jannette herself tell it. But overall, fantastic book. It's very soul-crushing and heartbreaking to hear about all of the things that she had to go through, especially at a young age. Very educational on what goes on behind the scenes when you are a child actor and being in the industry when you are that young, especially when you don't want to be in the industry when you are that young. Definitely recommend. And then another audiobook that I read or listened to this month that I have also been waiting for a very, very long time to read, because again, I've had it on hold through my library for a very long time, even though it's been eons since this book came out. And that is Daisy Jones and the Six by Taylor Jenkins Reid. I know. This book came out eons ago. Like I said, it took me a very long time to actually get a hold of it. Again, if you have been living under a rock, Daisy Jones and the Six, a story set in the 70s about a fictional band and their come-up story. How they came to be one of the biggest bands in the world at that time, and how they very, very quickly also fell from grace and departed and pretty much never spoke to each other ever again. It's been years since Daisy Jones and the Six separated, and now all the members have been brought back to be interviewed individually about their times during the band and what happened that made the biggest band in the world essentially disappear. Just like I'm Glad My Mom Died, I really also believe that the best way to consume this story is through audiobook. Say the interviewer asked a question, on paper it would say, Daisy, this is what she said. Billy, this is what he said. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with that, but I can see why that type of reading structure might not be someone's cup of tea, which is why I say that you should definitely give the audiobook a try. If you gave the physical book a try and it was not for you, please, please, please try the audiobook, because it's truly a beautiful, beautiful story. Taylor Jenkins Reid really has an art and a way of writing very, very unlikable characters in a way that even though you don't like them, you still understand them and you can still see why they do the things that they do. I won't talk your ear off about Daisy Jones and the Six too much, because I'm absolutely positive you've heard literally everyone else talk about it. But it is a really, really good story that I wholeheartedly believe deserves all the hype that it gets. And then the last book I read last month is If We Were Villains by M.L Rio. I actually have the copy. Yeah, If We Were Villains. This is a story that centers around our main character, Oliver, who we follow after his 10-year prison sentence is up. And once he is finally let out of prison, the detective that worked on his case is now retiring. And after 10 years, constantly wondering if Oliver actually committed the crime that he was accused of, he essentially goes up to him and is like, hey man, you just got released from prison. I'm about to retire. Can you please tell me what actually happened that night? Because I don't believe for a second that you actually told me the truth. And so Oliver does. And then we go back in time to when Oliver was in a very prestigious performing arts college, and how him and 6 of his closest friends basically found themselves in the middle of a murder investigation. This book is the definition of pretentious. I mean, the characters are all your stereotypical, very pretentious theater kids, but like times 10. They speak to each other in Shakespeare quotes. I enjoyed it nonetheless. The writing is phenomenal. I mean, truly did something to my little English class loving heart. The characters were real and they were flawed. This book was actually my favorite book that I read in September, and I think maybe with time, depending on how I feel about it a couple of weeks from now, it could potentially be maybe one of my favorites, one of my top favorites. So yeah, If We Were Villains by M.L Rio, highly recommend. And that was basically it for all the books that I read in September. Like I said, it was a pretty slow month. I have been very busy and in a very transitional period of my life, so reading is not something that I've been able to do a lot of lately. However, I do have a pretty decently tentative list of all the books that I would like to get to between now, the beginning of October, and the end of November. I am giving myself a 2-month leeway. The first book that I would really like to get through is All of Us Villains by Amanda Foody and Christine Lynn Herman. Funny enough, I actually ordered this book accidentally because I mistakenly ordered it thinking that it was If We Were Villains by M.L Rio. It is not. They are 2 very different books with 2 very different stories. But as soon as I picked it up, I was like, this is not what I signed up for, but I'm still so excited to go on this journey because it really does sound super, super interesting and is right up my alley. So to read you the description, every generation at the coming of the blood moon, 7 families in the remote city of Ilvernath, each name a champion to compete in a tournament to the death. The price? Exclusive control over a secret wellspring of high magic, the most powerful resource in the world. One thought long depleted. Tell me that doesn't sound so cool. And again, to think that I came about this book completely accidentally, mistaking it for another, and now I am so, so happy that I did because I'm really, really, really excited to get through this. So yeah, that's If We Were Villains. No, that's All of Us Villains. I did it again. All of Us Villains. The second book that I'm also really, really excited to read, absolutely certain that you have heard many, many, many things about this book, is Red Rising by Piers Morgan. This is a book that has been making its rounds on the online book community in general. And at first, when I first heard about it, I wasn't too excited because I knew that it was a sci-fi book, and not that I have anything against sci-fi, it's just I don't tend to read a lot of sci-fi on my own. I don't think I've read a sci-fi book since The Martian, and that was years ago. But every single person online that I've seen has given this book nothing but 5 stars. Everyone raves about it, and I even have a couple of people in my life who have read it and don't normally read sci-fi themselves and swear by this book. Literally everyone that I have come across has recommended the heck out of this book. So Red Rising follows lowborn miner Darrow as he infiltrates the ranks of the elite gods. And this is also set in the future on Mars. I mean, it sounds very, very interesting, and I am super, super excited to get to this book, especially because I have not read anything like it in a very, very long time. So it will definitely be a breath of fresh air in terms of what my reading taste has been like in the past couple of years. So I'm very excited for it. That's Red Rising. And then I have a series that I would like to finish, which is the Throne of Glass series by Sarah J. Maas. I actually started Throne of Glass earlier this year, right at the beginning of this year in January. I don't know why I stopped because I was fairly enjoying myself, but I stopped right at the end of Crown of Midnight or Empire, the book right before Tower of Dawn. So I still have Tower of Dawn and Kingdom of Ash to get through. I have read the complete ACOTAR series. I have read Crescent City, and I've been told that if I want to read Crescent City 3, I should probably finish Throne of Glass. It doesn't have to be between now and November, but I would like to get it done sooner rather than later. So yeah, Tower of Dawn and Kingdom of Ash by Sarah J. Maas. And then the last book that I am absolutely super, super, super excited to get through, one of my most anticipated releases of 2023, is A Curse for True Love by Stephanie Garber. This is, of course, the third in what I hope, what better be, the final book in the Once Upon a Broken Heart trilogy, which was originally a duology and then turned into a trilogy. And I really, really hope she keeps it at a trilogy because my heart cannot take the heartbreak that Ballad of Never After put me through. Please, Stephanie. If you're not familiar with Stephanie Garber and her work, Once Upon a Broken Heart is a spin-off of her very popular series Caraval, and it follows Evangeline, who makes a deal with one of the fates to get her beloved lover to not marry her sister and be with her instead. And of course, she makes a deal with someone who she should have not made a deal with, and everything goes south for her from there. Again, this has been one of my most anticipated releases of 2023. I cannot tell you how excited I am to get my hands on this book. I have pre-ordered it. I am ready. I'm pretty sure it comes at the end of October 24th, if I'm not mistaken. I'm really, really happy and really, really hopeful that this will be it, that this is the end of the story, because I don't think I could handle waiting for another book. And that was it for all of the books that I read in September and the ones that I wish to read between now, November, and October. I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you come back to find out what my thoughts are, if I can hopefully get through as much of this list as I possibly can. Thank you so much for watching. My name is Gigi.